Marvel Rivals has a duelist problem. Not to say that the duelists are too strong and the duelists just take over the meta, or the meta is just really focused on if you have a good duelist on your team or not. Marvel Rival has a duelist problem because there are just far too many duelists in the game in comparison to the two other roles. So today, I want to talk about what can be done to balance it out. And the only real solution is just release a bunch of characters for the other roles. So here are my list of options to fill out the other roles. Before we get into the list, let's take a look at the disparity between the roles. As of the recording of this video, the duelist role has 22 playable heroes. The Vanguard / tank role has 11 playable heroes, and the strategist / healer support role has 9 playable characters. So to round out the roster, not only am I going to propose a bunch of characters that could play those roles, I'm going to give an idea as to why they could play those roles and how that could fit in, respecting the character's lore and their comic book accuracy, while also making them a fun and interesting character to play as. Starting with the Vanguards, my first option for Vanguard is Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Carol Danvers in Marvel Comics is a powerhouse. She has the ability to absorb and channel energy from opposing enemy attacks and utilize that energy to power up. If she absorbs enough energy, she taps into her binary form, using the power of binary and becoming even more powerful as a tank. She could be another perpetually flying tank, or she could be on the ground. Either way, it doesn't really matter much to me, but it's clear from her power and her moveset that with her photon blast, she needs to have some sort of range damage, and then kind of frontlining, absorbing attacks and utilizing that to maybe enter her binary form and have her be kind of a dual form character. Or perhaps binary form could just be her ultimate, and the more damage she absorbs, the more she builds her ultimate meter, and then goes into binary form where she's far stronger and far more durable and does more damage, sort of like the Hulk ultimate. The next character I believe that should be added as a Vanguard is Black Bolt, the Inhuman King. So Black Bolt has an interesting issue wherein his power is directly tied to his voice, so he would actually be unable to have any natural speaking voice lines. But he also has some level of telepathy available to him, and he uses that to communicate with his wife Medusa, who then speaks his thoughts. I think that Marvel Rivals can then reinvent the character in a small way by saying that he bolstered his psionic abilities and his telepathy to where now he can communicate with all characters. So he's still able to have a voice line, it's just that he's speaking into people's minds as opposed to speaking out loud. Black Bolt is a really cool character, really interesting character, and his power level is immense. He's super durable, he can fly, and his psionic voice is capable of destroying entire planets. Of course, you would have to tone that down. I think they should lean more into his combat abilities or maybe some of his other powers, and his ultimate can be him actually finally speaking in one giant wave to blow down the enemies. Next up, we have one of 2 tanks that I'm thinking about adding that are going to be your standard punch tanks. I really would prefer them not to add a lot of standard punch tanks because I feel like we have a decent amount already. The issue is the tank role are typically filled with standard punch guys because that's the concept behind having a large, powerful character that can sustain a lot of damage. They typically are standard punch guys. So I'll knock those 2 out right now and then get back to the more interesting ones. First, Colossus. Really easy. A popular X-Men. There's not much to him really and truly unless they want to use Phoenix Force Colossus, which I don't think they should delve too far into using other aspects of characters. I think using their most known and standard appearance in comic books is better for the fans who want to play as characters that they like from the source material. So Colossus will just be another standard punch guy, and after him, Luke Cage. A really cool, really popular character as well, super durable, super strong, But again, he's just going to be a standard punch guy who is just good at taking a lot of damage. I don't know about anything that we can do with their powers outside of that. I'm sure the team at NetEase will think of something clever and interesting to do with it. Just some kind of miscellaneous abilities that you can attach to it, but they are just your basic standard punch guys. Next up, we have the Juggernaut. Now, he could be a standard punch guy, but I think there's a lot more to do with his powers because of the interesting lore accurate fact that the Juggernaut is literally the incarnation of an unstoppable force. So it would be cool to utilize some of the aspects that they gave to the thing and making it so that when he's charging that he can't be CC'd, so that's a way to take space for your team. There could be a charge button that may be on a cooldown of him running forward, or something along the likes of, as he starts charging, he begins to get overshield up into a certain threshold, and that's another way for him to take space. So maybe he's not CC immune, but his damage threshold becomes higher and higher. So as he's pushing forward and helping the team push forward, he can take a lot more damage. I think there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with that concept and still be respectful to the source material. Up next, we have Thanos, of course. Thanos has gained extreme popularity as of late with presence in the Infinity Saga in the MCU as the big bad. And of course, there is so much you can do with the Infinity Gauntlet. There's so many different ways you can incorporate the Infinity Stones and all the abilities associated with the Infinity Stones. He's very clearly a large, imposing character, so slotting him into the tank slot is a given. It almost doesn't even bear expanding upon. Almost anything you can think of in terms of abilities is something that Thanos should be able to do with the Infinity Gauntlet. There's so much fun stuff that they can incorporate by just utilizing each stone as a different ability or cooldown or passive that it's pretty much self-explanatory. A character that hasn't gotten much love recently that I think would be great is Dormammu. Dormammu has all manner of interesting powers that he can use. He can fly, he can astral project, he has levels of magic above the Sorcerer Supreme. He has a really cool design that unfortunately we didn't get to see in the MCU, but I believe the Marvel vs. Capcom games did extremely well. He's one of the most powerful villains in Marvel Comics, and I think we really need more true bad guys in Marvel Rivals. You have bad guys in the game, but you have other people who can kind of flip-flop and play both sides. I want to see more proper villains who are just always bad. For tank number 8, we have a character that if you are not a comic book aficionado, you do not know about this character. Blue Marvel. Really cool Superman-esque character. He has energy manipulation, he can fly, he has telekinesis, he has matter manipulation, he's a super genius. There's so many cool things about Blue Marvel, and we could get another flying tank. It doesn't have to be permanent flight like Angela is. It could be flight on a toggle because he's also able to run around the battlefield using his matter manipulation abilities in other ways. He has cosmic abilities, he has a really cool costume and design, and I don't think he's ever been in any video game. I'll have to double check to make sure if he never made it into an Ultimate Alliance game, but he does not get the love that he deserves. He has a really interesting design, and I would love to see him in the game as a tank. Right behind him is a character that he spends a lot of time with, Photon, or Monica Rambeau. You should have already seen her if you do pay attention to the Captain Marvel films in the MCU. Monica Rambeau has similar abilities. She's also a flying character. It could be in line with the kind of Captain Marvel, Blue Marvel-esque abilities, all characters that could be flying tanks. I don't want to populate the game with too many flying tanks, but having other characters with different forms of powers, like I said, you don't really want that many punch guys because then the tank role will feel very one note, which is why I appreciate tanks like Emma Frost and Doctor Strange because they have different ways of incorporating their abilities into the tank role. Another villain tank that would be great is Apocalypse. Apocalypse, the X-Men villain. If you've watched the Fox X-Men films, you did see Apocalypse in the Age of Apocalypse. I would prefer to return to the standard comic design because I think the redesign was horrible in those films, but Apocalypse would be another fun villain tank to add to the game so that we can really expand the roster of villains. Apocalypse has cool powers like shape-shifting and size alteration, so it might be interesting to see how he can incorporate that into his moveset. His ultimate could be something where he grows to an immense size and lets out a powerful wave or something of that sort, or smashes into the ground because he does have super strength and super durability. Or he could shape-shift his body into different weapons, sort of like how Angela does with the Ecor, changing her spear into axes or things like that, just having a bunch of different weapons you can utilize and maybe kind of a toggle/switch mode in the same vein of Angela. And the final tank I'd like to add is one more flying tank, War Machine. I think War Machine would be absolutely sick. I think War Machine is overall a cooler character than Iron Man just due to the amount of things he can incorporate. A shoulder-mounted machine gun is awesome design, and the amount of Hellfire rockets that he can fire off. There's just so many different ways he can incorporate all of the artillery in his moveset. Now we can move on to balancing the support role. The support role has even fewer characters in the game than the tank role, so we need about 13 more supports to fully balance out the role to be in line with the tank and the DPS role. One thing that I considered heavily when thinking about characters that I wanted to incorporate into the support role was the fact that I didn't want to incorporate characters who traditionally fill the heal/support role in comics, because I think it's more interesting to take a character that doesn't do that and make them into a support. Because one, I feel like supports unfortunately don't get the coolest characters, which makes it a more difficult role for people to play because all of the cool characters are DPS. So to inspire people to play support more, you have to pick cool characters to play as. As far as we have currently, the only really quote unquote cool character that was slotted into the support role was Ultron. And that's because he's an awesome villain that had a lot of impact in the comic books and even in the movies, whereas the other characters don't have that same cool appeal, as it were, if you understand where I'm coming from. I'm talking about your mainstream characters that people really love, like a Wolverine or a Spider-Man or a Blade or a Phoenix. Characters like that people gravitate to need to be incorporated more into the support role so that people want to play these characters. So to start, I have Scott Summers, Cyclops, the X-Men leader. I think Scott is a really cool character. I think he doesn't get all the love he deserves because he's consistently considered the lame character. A way I think you can make him a support is tap into his leadership abilities, and he doesn't have to use his optic blast to heal. He could have a cooldown that is a rousing support cooldown. So instead of just blasting people with this optic blast and somehow healing them with that, he consistently shouts out to the team or provides a pep talk to assist in boosting their morale or rousing them to continue to fight harder. For my second strategist I'd like to put forth Medusa, the Queen of the Inhumans. She has an interesting ability in which she has trichokinesis, which is the ability to freely control her hair. Her hair is extremely long and extremely durable. She can use it as movement to kind of walk around on hair stilts, or she can utilize it in a healing fashion to give people some kind of hair shield. Put forth her hair and wrap around her allies. It can heal her over time. It can do an immediate heal and provide some extra overshield if they're already at full health. It's kind of hard because that's really her only ability, but I think Medusa is a fun character with fun lore, and it'll work putting her in the game with Black Bolt. And I also like to just see more Inhumans incorporated into the game. Speaking of Inhumans, my third choice to add is Lockjaw, the dog of the Inhumans. I think it'd be fun adding Lockjaw because you have another pet-esque creature that can also serve as a fun, cute little companion, similar to the way that Jeff the land shark is incorporated. His abilities are standard inhuman abilities, superhuman strength, superhuman durability, but he also possesses telekinesis and interdimensional teleportation. So Lockjaw can teleport across dimensions or just across the world. So I think a fun way to incorporate that would be having him be a sort of get out of jail free card for his allies. So if you're caught in the middle of a fight, Lockjaw, if you're close enough, could teleport you away, and perhaps that teleport provides some healing once he takes you to a different location, or he can just teleport directly to you, and landing at your location provides healing over time. For my fourth selection, I believe we can do another dual character, which could be Ant-Man and the Wasp, or just either character individually. Janet Van Dyne or Scott Lang or Hank Pym, it doesn't really matter to me. They all have similar abilities. The only difference is Hank Pym is more of a scientist, so he could utilize the Pym particles in a different way that may provide healing to his allies. Scott Lang is a thief, so I'm not sure in which way he could utilize the Pym particles, but I'm sure, like I said, the team at NetEase has the ability to create some interesting ways of incorporating these characters. The shrinking and growing ability would be kind of tough to incorporate. You don't want a character to be able to get too small, and that affects hitboxes, and that affects, the comfortability of playing around that character if a character becomes super small, but I'm sure there's a way to incorporate them. I think the switching aspect would be more fun, being able to switch from the Wasp to Ant-Man. I don't think you have to do the similar thing that Cloak and Dagger do, in which their bodies switch. I think it could be a situation in which they are constantly running into battle at the same time, and so the Wasp is flying around Scott or Hank, and if you want to play as the Wasp, you swap to her, and Scott shrinks down and the Wasp grows in size. I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with both of their powers. Next up, we have Wiccan, the son of Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, a very powerful mutant that has mage abilities. I think there are so many different things he can do. He has the standard mutant and mage abilities, so energy projection, astral projection, concussive blast, but magic is such a cool idea because you can do so much with magic. You can do a bunch of different spells that can heal your allies. You can do spells that give them overshields or things like that. I think magic is so expansive, and I wish they did more with Scarlet Witch's magic, because she's a lot more powerful than they make her seem in game outside of her ultimate. So magic has so many different uses, and Wiccan is a great way to incorporate those different uses. He has hydrokinesis, he has ice generation, he has fire generation, he can fly, and Wiccan already is a healer in the comics, so it works as well. Number 6, we have Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is another character I think fits well because he is a cool character that people really like, and he does have a cool ability in teleportation. I like him to use that teleportation in the same way that I conceptualize Lockjaw using it, wherein he can teleport to allies and perhaps teleport them back outside of a fight, and when he does that, they get health or over health in some fashion, maybe as a movement ability, as he can double jump and teleport forward a certain distance, or perhaps the brimstone smoke he leaves behind can provide some sort of camouflage to either distract or incapacitate enemies, or in some way assist his allies. For character number 7, we have Quentin Beck, or Mysterio. Mysterio is a fun character to imagine as a strategist because he utilizes the power of illusion. So imagining all the different illusions that Mysterio can create to help support perhaps creating stationary holograms of your allies to trick the enemies into pursuing an ally in a different direction. Maybe he can send a hologram off to run in one direction, similar to the way Mirage uses his ability in Apex Legends, thus splintering the enemy team because maybe they chase after this character, or maybe they believe that they're getting flanked, so their focus is sort of split, kind of leaning into the more strategized aspect of strategists and not just being a direct heal bot. He also has some hypnotism abilities, so he can also utilize that to perhaps maybe cause an enemy to see multiple versions of a character, so so they shoot at the wrong one, and then that character fades away after taking a certain amount of damage. Just different ways that he could trick the enemy team into being less effective. Up next, we have Quicksilver. Now, Quicksilver is a hard one to incorporate because super speed is a really difficult ability to balance. You have characters that run a lot faster in the game, like Captain America, but even he runs at a pretty reasonable pace. Quicksilver will have to be insanely fast in game for him to be lore accurate, and I haven't even figured out a way to incorporate that. The only ideas I've come up with are a cooldown ability in which he rushes to his allies and repositions them and heals them while he's running with them. Perhaps a toggle ability where he activates his super speed and has sort of a slipstream behind him, and any ally who passes through the slipstream is healed as well, but he can't attack while doing that. It's really tough because super speed is an ability that's easy to make broken, so it'll be something to consider when it comes to balance. Next up, we have the Silver Surfer, and it could be any Silver Surfer, it doesn't matter to me. It could be Norrin Rad or Shalabal as seen in the recent Fantastic Four movie. It doesn't really matter, I think both would be fine, but the Power Cosmic of course has its healing capabilities. The Silver Surfer is just straight up able to heal people, so I think it would be perfectly easy to incorporate the Silver Surfer as a healer in the strategist role. It could be also another flying support because he does have the Silver Surfboard. So I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with that. And of course he has all the standard superhero abilities. He has regeneration, so you can put his health regen on a cooldown, and after not taking damage for a certain amount of time, he just standardly heals back up. Superhuman strength, superhuman stamina, superhuman reflexes, all the standard superhero fare that you normally see. For number 10, we have the Vision. Now, the Vision is one where I'd like to also dive more into the strategizing role because he has abilities like intangibility and density manipulation. So he could use his density manipulation to grant his allies some sort of overshield by making them heavier, or grant them some kind of speed boost by making them lighter and more susceptible to damage. He has invisibility, he has flight, he has his normal superhuman strength that he can use, he has his laser beam and things like that he can use in combat, and I'm sure they can incorporate his laser as some sort of healing ray as well. But I like these characters also have different ways they can help the team as opposed to just straight standard healing. Next up, we have one that's a bit of a strange choice, as he can clearly be a DPS, but most characters can be. But I think a fun strategist would be Taskmaster, and I think a way you can incorporate his eidetic memory and the ability for him to copy anybody's abilities is if he looks at another strategist, he can then use a cooldown that will then copy their healing ability, or maybe another ability that they have. So if he looks at Dagger, he can copy that little bubble she does, that healing bubble. Or if he looks at Mantis, he can copy her ability to throw out her seeds to heal over time. Just some way that he can copy other characters' abilities for a little bit of time. Or maybe if he looks at Cloak, he can copy his shadow ability. It's hard to incorporate it for abilities that just are impossible to copy, whereas it's not just hand-to-hand combat and things like that. But I think there's a level of suspension of disbelief there that would be okay. For strategist number 11, we have Shadowcat. Now, she falls in line sort of with the Lockjaw and Nightcrawler concepts that I have. I believe the fact that she has intangibility would be a cool ability to use, wherein if you're nearby an ally, you can quote-unquote touch them and make them intangible for maybe just holding down the button so that you can stay in intangibility. Perhaps they can balance it by making it so that you cannot contest a point while you're intangible, so you just don't take damage for a little moment, and maybe it's on a cooldown, so maybe you become intangible and it's 3 seconds, and that'll allow you to avoid a lot of ultimates, just any form of damage. You basically become untargetable and unCCable in that instance. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think an also cool passive would be the fact that she can just walk through all physical objects. So make it so that she can't get stuck by geometry or trapped by anything on the map. So she may have the fastest rollouts because she can make a beeline from point A to point B by going all the way to the point, as opposed to having to go around walls or other map geometry or things like that. I think they're really cool and fun ways you can incorporate that and make her a more interesting character to play and inspire more people to play the strategist role. And finally, the last strategist we have is one more X-Men in Beast. He is a super genius scientist who can come up with all manner of gadgets and gizmos that he can utilize to heal his allies, but he's also extremely strong and he could utilize that in combat, throw people around, slash at them similar to Wolverine, have a decently sized health pool for a strategist. I think there's a lot you can do with that. Scientists are just the most versatile kind of characters outside of magic users, in which you can just basically throw anything at the wall and say, hey, look, it's science, and so it works. And those are all of my concepts for characters that can be added to finally balance out the tank and strategist role. So we have the equal amount of tanks and strategists in comparison to the DPS. I know there are a couple characters that ideally would fit in that I missed. A lot of characters in actuality. Of course, we want Doctor Doom in the game and things of that like, but I just wanted to think of some cool characters that may not have gotten as much screen time. The great thing about Marvel Rivals is it's inspiring a lot of people to get into Marvel Comics as a whole by incorporating these characters, and so I think they would be really fun. There are a couple honorable mentions that I would like to incorporate as characters in general, but I feel like they just fit better for the DPS role. I think Miles Morales is a real cool character. I think Jane Foster's Thor is a cool character. Beta Ray Bill is a really interesting character. Sam Wilson is Captain America, etc., etc. But let me know who you think would be a fun character to incorporate the game. Let me know if you like my picks. Thank you so much for watching. Behave yourself.